Here we are. Hey, Dustin, it is a Friday, so you know what that means. I don't know what day you're listening to this on audio-wise, but if you're listening to it on YouTube, if you caught a new show, if you subscribe to the channel, like right now, if you went click on the button below us, I don't think it makes an audible sound effect. Most people, do you leave on audible sound effects on your phone, Dustin, like the clicking in such of the phone, or do you immediately turn that off when you get a new device? Those
I turn it off.
Yeah, right away. No one, the clicking, by the way, and I'm just... Apologies. Welcome to Because Cannabis, live on YouTube, produced by Wayward Media. You know the drill by now. But if you're leave the audio on for the clicking, we got to talk. We got to talk. Hopefully you're here to talk about cannabis, as Dustin and I don't know. The personal little thing I went. I apologize if that's you are. I don't mean, hopefully our guest is not like that. She'll be all offended. We'll have to ask her when she comes in. Welcome to Because Cannabis, everyone. As I said, this is Wayward Media production. A lot of great shows available for you on our website, wayward.media. We're very happy to have Because Cannabis, to have Anthony Trav do streaming. Lots of great new shows coming. Dustin, I know you've been working on some stuff. Wayward Media is really coming along. Really excited about where we've come in this year in 2022. Big things. How you feeling so far about the launch, about the site, about the show? We're about, 2 months in, 3 months in almost, right?
I definitely think it's been a process, and it's definitely felt uphill almost the entire time so far. But you know what? I think that I like where we're at. I like where we're going. I like some of the compromises we've been making over the last 6 or 7 months while we've worked towards, some of these goals. And I'm really, really excited for this year. I think we're finally getting to where we originally wanted it to be, upwards of maybe a year ago or more.
Sure. Well, it takes a long time. It takes a long time to make the dream happen, which is really something our guest today will talk about. I'm very excited, Dustin, talking about getting there. I feel like the last couple shows, we've had some really great guests on. We like to talk. I think we're good. I like when Dustin and I get together and have conversations about cannabis, about the fun things, about the news and the hot topics, but we both love to learn. We are people who like to teach, like to educate, but love to learn, absorbers of knowledge. And when we can find guests today, guests who are been at it for a while, been doing that kind of grind and still trying to find their place, I'm excited to learn from them. So we're excited to bring our guests in here just a little bit. Don't forget, follow the show socially at MEETWM, MEETWM. Once again, subscribe to the channel. We really would appreciate it. Lots of new shows on YouTube every Friday, available on audio. We're also on audio, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. You name your audio version tuned in, we'll go through all of them. It's there. Check out Because Cannabis. Give it a follow, give it a like, give it a rating, do all those things that people ask you to do. Definitely subscribe, though. Helps us out. Leave a comment. Let us know. If you have a guest, do you have someone in the cannabis industry that you would like us to talk to and find out and take a deep dive into why they are into this amazing plant? Leave a note in the comments. Let us know. We'll try and get them on the show, or email hello@wayward.media. Check us out. Dustin, great guest today. Someone to come in here, really talk about. You are a medical patient in Ohio. We have someone who has guided many, 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 many patients through that process, and now is taken a step beyond. And so with that, let's go ahead and bring in our guest, someone who is, there she is right there. Someone who has is a physician, someone who is an educator, someone who is an advocate, an entrepreneurial, a businesswoman, and now Dr. Bridget Williams, now you're an author. You went and did it. You went and felt like the next step up. You've been advocating, you've been helping, you've been healing, you've been teaching. Yeah. You finally decided to sit down, call upon some collaborators. Oh my gosh, I had that word in my head. So collaborators, and go ahead and put fingers on the keyboard and write a book. That's pretty exciting, right? Why did you make that
very step? Exciting. Very, very exciting. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to meet you, Dustin. Always good to see you, B.C.
It is fantastic. Pardon me. I got a little under the weather, so I'm going to take a lot of sips. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Dustin. A lot of sips on air. Totally unprofessional. Not like you, Dr. Bridget Williams. Extremely professional. Green Harvest Health, greenharvest.health. And now let's start at the lead. Let's not bury it. Courage in Cannabis. You have a book that is out. It's available anywhere. You can find it in the link below, in the comments, on Amazon, on Barnes & Nobles, everywhere your online retailers are. Click the link, though. We'd appreciate it. Click the link. Courage in Cannabis. It is an anthology that you wrote, got some amazing people that have had this amazing plant alter them, right? Change their perception, change their lives. Why? Like, you do so much educating. You know, we were talking before we went live, how you're always out there, you're always on video, you're always talking, and the spoken word is an amazing medium to get your point across. You've done it very well over these last several years. Why write the book? Why put another version of you out there?
So the book thing started happening almost from the start of me seeing patients. As soon as I started seeing patients and I'd hand them their card and I had big, burly, grown men start to cry, I was like, what is this, right? And then to learn about the shame, the guilt they're hiding, women that wanted to be involved in their churches and they were afraid because they used cannabis. The card was much more than access, it was liberation. And it was healing, really, sometimes some very painful aspects of their relationship to cannabis. And man, the stories that people would share with me, and I started writing them down. And I had someone that was interested in publishing it. But my heart, my brain told me I couldn't do it because they weren't my stories. You know, I was still very new in this space and was still many times an observer of the culture and felt like it wasn't right for me. You know, now I'm in it, right? I'm in it.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I was still very much an observer, and I felt like I couldn't publish their stories. They weren't my stories. So I kind of just put it aside and came across this whole anthology concept. And not only could the authors write their own stories, but they could financially benefit from their own stories. And that was really important to me. And so there's 18 authors, and they each can sell the books and financially benefit from the book themselves. And you know, I started working with them July. I started doing my search last year, and we actually published in December. So yeah, really great process.
I own the book and read it and really enjoyed it. I come from the smoke shop end
Sure.
of this, and most people kind of shun that part of the industry out. They don't really consider that even part of the rapport. You're dealing on much more of a medical side. But I will say that out of the 17 stories, 80% of them, I could hear my own customers coming in and expressing those things. And more than once throughout the book did I myself break down in tears, saying, I remember that feeling myself as a patient, or I remember what it meant when our customer finally was able to get their card and to go through a lot of this. A lot of even part of your book wasn't even always about the patient experience. It really, some of it was about the entering into the business side of it.
Yeah.
And, the courage within this industry totally spans across every aspect of it, and I almost want to go back to when you started Green Harvest, and that first week, that first month of the patients coming in and you really not knowing whether this was what you should be doing or whether, what was the first time of the first patient that came in? That really made you, solidified that, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. Just hearing something that they had said and what helped solidify this?
Yeah. It was such, like, I had a patient 15 years ago that started asking me about cannabis, and I thought she was nuts. 15 years ago, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's just weed. What do you, but I looked it up, was really blown away by the medicinal aspects that were everywhere, but in medical schools, and nothing that I was finding anyplace else. So I really fell in love with what it could do 15 years ago, right? And because I followed her in her journey. She was making edibles, she was smoking. I was looking up dosage and titrations and timing, and saw she was a breast cancer patient that had just been diagnosed with diabetes. So I was seeing her blood sugars normal, and she was losing weight in a good way. And she was sleeping better. Her productivity at work was better. Everything I thought about cannabis totally changed with this experience with her. And so, of course, all of what I was doing back then was illegal. So I just kind of put it in my back pocket. And so when it became legal in Ohio, I knew I wanted to be a part of this. And I got the little quick, ability to recommend, and got a job with a card company. And they were like, we don't care what you know, we're cards for cash. That's all we do. And I was like, well, this isn't it at all for me. So never started at the job. I got certified as a cannabis educator and a life coach and opened my own offices. So this was really coming full circle for me when I opened my doors, because I was frustrated with the medical community. I mean, that's why I was there. 15-minute visits that were diagnosis pill all day long never fit me. So I never knew that I would find my place in medicine with cannabis. But when it all came together, it completely made sense. And I remember one of our first patients well, because I literally carried him around with me. And anytime I had like a public speaking opportunity, I'm like, come with me, because he had such an amazing story. And so a veteran, and we opened in December of 2018. So he was a Santa Claus guy, right? Like he did the mall, and he was a Santa for hire, right? So I don't know, there was something so like comfortable and loving, because I took Santa with me everywhere. And what an amazing guy. And so I felt like, I don't believe there's any hierarchy in the cannabis community. Like, I realize the medical piece is something that many people don't think about, but you can't tell me that these aren't my people and that this isn't my culture. And in the book I share, I found my joy in the cannabis community. And so, so to be able to share my story, as well as bring these other stories to the forefront for others to be educated, but also inspired by, was really, I could barely sleep holding on to this concept. So
it's exciting. I would imagine a lot of people were, excited to be part of the book, right? And kind of share their story you run into. And as we talked about, whether it's on drbridgetwilliams.com, one of your many social media channels, you are always out there. You're on multiple. Just Google Dr. Bridget Williams and you'll find about 4 podcasts a week that Dr. Bridget Williams shows up on, right? And maybe not that many, but you're always out there. You're putting yourself out there. But I think that's why, Dr. Bridget, I think that's why people connect, right? Because you're so honest, right? I've talked about this several times. I've been working in and out kind of around the industry for the last 5-6 years. Kind of like you, I came to it a little differently, right? Just through my own experimentation, but I was very apprehensive for a long time with the product or with telling people, regardless of whatever my usage was, just even mention it. Yet trying to work in the industry, and someone mentioned to me that I kind of needed to like open up the door to my cannabis closet and step out, right? Like I needed to be free, and I needed to admit that. And I think when you're the multiple people who, contribute to this book, I think that's part of it. It's a freeing sensation to say, look, I'm trying to take care of my own health. I'm not an idiot. Like, I'm not ignoring doctors' advice. I have well-trained physicians working with me. I'm just taking a different skew, right? A different look at it. And by the way, look at the results. Like, just look at this, right? We talk to a lot of people. There's a lot of great films out there and such that look at these journeys. And when we always associate cannabis, a lot of people automatically go to THC, they go to Cheech and Chong, they go to like spliffs and super high, but the CBD, the industrial hemp, like the usage of it, right, in the journeys. And as Dustin said, a lot of them are, heartbreaking, right? If you're an emotionally touched person, they're so sad. Was it, were people excited to be a part of it? Did you have to coax people into it? How, when you went out and reached out to the people, and I guess, how did you determine, who did you want in there with meeting so many people and so many patients? How do you narrow that down and edit it to 18, 17 stories? Because there's hundreds.
So it really, people came to me all sorts of ways. We kind of put a call for authors out there. People that knew people said, you have to have this person in your book. I wanted diversity, meaning I wanted every aspect of cannabis and CBD in the book, right? Because I wanted it to be relatable to so many different people. And so we ended up with the doctors and the lawyers and the activists and journalists and patients and caregivers and educators. I did not want one person to read the book and say there was nothing in there for me. And so it happened very kind of just organically that we ended up with the people that we did. You know, we had one author that he started the process and he was like, I can't do it because I have a friend whose story is so much better. And he brought her in and he stepped out because of that. And that patient was Rebecca's story about her son that had the brain tumor. And it's just, you know, I've never, the people in this book are so loving and humble and so giving. And for many of them, it is a healing process in itself. And I was very much aware that that was going to be a part of this for some of them, that having the ability to write their story was going to be an emotional journey. So we really worked hard to, it wasn't like, here's your assignment, let me know when you're done writing. It was a lot of communication and giving confidence and giving them room to experiment and reading different versions of their story, and really allowing them to heal that broken piece that, like you were saying, coming out of their cannabis closet for many of them. And that was important to me. I wanted that to be a part of the journey, that it's not just stories written, but it's an experience. And that's how I even sold the book to people, that you're not just going to come in, because people are like, oh, I'll donate my story. And I'm like, I don't want your story. I want your experience. And so they knew getting into it that they were about to take a ride, which we're still on all together. But I don't think I would do it any differently.
I did not realize that each contributor was selling it themselves and kind of, you know, able to, I don't know. I think that's really powerful to me.
Yeah,
It
it's
changed
super
my
awesome,
whole
for sure.
perception of the entire thing. And it's something where I know that each one of those stories does have someone that it will resonate with.
Yeah.
And even when it's the person that was telling the story, when they can hand that off and say, you may not be ready for this now, but in a couple weeks, in a couple months, like
Yeah.
it's here for you, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, that's really, that it's powerful. It truly is
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
Are
So if
you
you,
guys,
Mhm. No, I was
so
going to
no,
say, if
go
you go
on.
to our website, courageincannabis.com, some of the authors have their link up there. So you
Yes, I
literally,
noticed that almost every one of them was either on other shows or
Yes.
has clubhouses that you can join in every week, or
Yes.
they're the large majority of the people in there are still educating and still pursuing this in some degree. It wasn't
Yeah.
just here's my story, I'm going to go back into my, you know, cave or something and
Right.
hide from all this. They truly seem like they're embracing what it means to come out with this and to
Yeah.
say some of these things.
Yeah. Well, I've done like I did an anthology before this because I didn't even know what that was. Right. And so, and I realized, I realized what I wanted to do was different, right? That it wasn't just going to be write your story, hope you sell it or what have you. But I knew this book would mean more to the authors as well as had the potential to mean so much to this audience, right? And so we give it to churches and parents that are chastising their kids and legislators, because I can go and do a million talks and talk about research and statistics and p-values and randomized controlled trials. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Okay. What really hits people is when they hear that story that changed someone's life. And I'll back it up with a little research, and now, you know, we're talking, right? But I can give you all the research in the world and it will not make you move. You hear that one story from someone where it's heartfelt and now you're in it. And I wanted the book to be powerful enough to help change minds and help educate. And keep in mind, this is our first book, but we have every intention of creating a series. We'll start looking for new authors in the fall.
There you go. Courageincannabis.com. You can buy it once again anywhere available on Amazon. It's been a pretty It's been a pretty interesting 4 or 5 years, I would say, for you, Dr. Bridget, since I met you, right? Like you started is this, you know, and you can listen to, we've talked before on Wayward
Yeah.
Planet. You can find our episode there, as well as, once again, many of the appearances you do. You know, is this physician, right? Is this doctor? What I would think everyone would refer to, and I hate to say like a normal doctor, but a normal doctor who doesn't typically recommend cannabis, because that
Right.
seems to be the case. There are doctors who, I don't know if I even want to use the word believe. There are doctors who are comfortable with it. There
Mhm.
are doctors who believe in it, and then there are doctors who are adamant to say, can't use it, not going to
Yeah.
happen. It's a drug. In this, like, you know, time frame since you've adjusted and you've come out of your cannabis closet, so to speak,
Yeah.
and whether it's been an advocate of it, have your peers like looked fondly upon you? Have some people turned their back on you? Has this been a weird transition? Because I think that's part of this process. People who use cannabis medicinally sometimes are apprehensive to tell
Yeah.
people, even their family members. And that's part of what Courage in Cannabis is about. Like, it's about
Yeah.
sharing your stories, but yet doctors, and even sharing with your doctor, right? I know someone right now, and I want to talk to you about this in a minute, who's
Mhm.
suffering from something, who was nervous to tell their doctor about their cannabis consumption. But even though they're a non-judgmental person, so to speak, because they were, I guess, afraid of whatever
Yeah.
would happen, but it turned out the cannabis could have been related to something
Mhm.
going on with her. So in that case, it's hard because I think a lot of older school doctors are more stubborn, are more closed-minded. How's this been
Mhm.
for you in this last 6, 7, 8 years as you've transitioned into this industry, you know, from 18 to now? You've been all in, you know, you're writing books. Have you lost some people? Have people been, you know, what's that been like with your former doctor family, now with the cannabis family? Are they combining? Are they at the picnic together? Or no? Did they not take the invite?
So I think maybe the reason I even got here is because I was always, what is it, the square peg trying to fit in the round hole the whole time. You
Yes.
know, I'm a psych major, you know, for my undergrad, and I really was at a fork in the road between, do I go to psychology, which is my natural inclination?
Mm.
But my dad had colon cancer when I was growing up, and I hated when doctors would walk in the room in the hospital because they would not acknowledge these two kids and, you know, the wife sitting there devastated with what was going on. They would walk in, not notice us at all, and not even really talk to my dad. They would talk about him in front of him. And that irked me so bad that, and I was, you know, 11, 12 years old. Every time they'd walk out, I'd tell my mom, I could do that so much better. Like, how do you not see these children? How do you not see my mother? You know? And every time I was like, I could do that so much better. And she was like, you should. And so, being a psych major, which is honestly my first love, without a doubt, I really thought, do I go with what I know is easy for me? Or do I try to shake up the system? Which, like, seems really crazy now because that's a headache, right? But I knew, I think that moment with my dad, I was like, I got to go in here and do something different. And so I never really fit in. I never really fit with my peers in medicine. And so, being in this space, yeah, they turn their nose up at me, but I also know I'm happy. And they were already turning their nose up at me. So it didn't really, you know, I was the weird doctor that wanted to talk to my patients for an hour, right? So it's not like this huge change happened. I was always kind of on the outside, to be totally honest with you. But I also think you get to an age, we don't necessarily need to announce what age that might be, but you get to an age and you don't care anymore, right? And so,
Sure.
wait, can we swear on here? I don't know if we can
You can
swear.
Yeah.
say whatever you
Oh,
want.
we can.
Say what,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, a girlfriend of mine said years ago that there's something called the fuck you 40s. And at
Ooh,
that
yes.
point, you just don't give a shit anymore.
Oh, I
right?
love it.
And so it took me a little while to get there. So I'm passing out of my 40s, but I made it. I still got there, right? And I don't think I care what my peers think. I found my passion. I found my tribe. I found my people. I found something that works miraculously better than most of those pharmaceuticals. And if I can bring a voice to that, then I don't think of myself as an outlier. I think of myself as a front runner. I think of all of us all of us as front
Love it.
runners, right?
I used to call it a midlife crisis. I'm almost 50 as well, right? I'll be
Yes.
50 in a year and a half. I'll be 49 this year. And so it is about in my early 40s, right? In my early 40s, when the same, like my wife would call it a midlife crisis. I always jokingly refer to it as a phoenix-like rebirth from the ashes. But I
Yes.
think I might
I'm
go
with
fuck
you.
you 40s. Like fuck you 40s is all in, because it is true. You have a certain shift and it becomes a, gosh, like I got to figure out something for me, right? And for
Yeah.
me, and to be comfortable, and all these different things that I've done over the last 6-7 years, which would have been about 41, 42 when this whole, once again, midlife crisis, and same for you, kind of that same journey of let me figure out what really motivates me, right? Like really gets me going. I think that is extremely exciting.
Yeah.
It's funny because you talk about all these doctors in the time limit. I work, I've talked about this before. I work as the standardized patient sometimes, this odd little job where I pretend to be, I do it all the time, right? I work at all the hospitals in our area, pretend to be sick for the doctors and such.
The phone rang, it didn't work. Okay, go ahead.
All right, there we go, we're back. And so they are all about maximizing. Oh, can you hear me yet? We're getting her back here in just a second. We're getting her go. I see you. I'm talking. I'm stalling right now till Dr. Bridget Williams. CannabisEncourage.com. There she goes. CannabisEncourage.com. Click the link below. Check out the book. We'll get her back in just a second. Dustin, be on the lookout for her. It's been a great conversation so far. I feel like
I'm loving it. And actually, if for anyone listening, the book is seriously full of a lot of stories that just it pulled on my heartstrings at so many instances. And at the end of each story, there really would be, a link to where I could hear more from the person. So yeah, please, if you are listening, it's a great opportunity to check out.
We're just promoting your book. You dropped out. It gave us a perfect time to promote CourageandCannabis.com, to click on the link below. Dustin's talking about the stories. I just read the excerpt. Let me be real. I read the excerpt from it on Amazon. Dustin went all in and bought the ebook. So
yeah,
hey,
well, the Audible should be out any day now. So
good. I was hoping I was going to find that originally.
Did you? Who recorded your Audible?
So I hired a incredible voice talent who I listened to dozens of voice talents. And this was the one person that if it was a guy's voice, she created a convincing guy's voice. And when one of the authors spoke about living in Texas, there was that little bit of a, drawl in there that she's amazing. I'm going to, as soon as it's released, we're going to do a Facebook Live with her and all the authors, because no one knows their stories. Like I know all the stories, right?
Sure.
She's the only person that knows those stories as well as I do. And she's fascinated by all the authors. And so I think it's really, she has questions, which I think is fascinating. And I just want people to meet her. Like I've just loved her so much. And how she throws her voice is amazing. So
I wondered if you were going to take the show on the road a bit and have these kind of like virtual tours with some of the authors and stuff like that. So I can't wait for a Facebook Live with that. I'm definitely.
Yeah. We have something called the Courage and Cannabis Workshop, which I did a version of it right before we launched the book last December. Literally, it was the same week the book launched, and I did it at the NCIA in San Francisco. And it's basically a workshop for whoever, where we give part of the stories and part of the testimonies of patients or people in the book. And then we have an expert short mini lecture. And it gives opportunity. Again, I could give you stats all day, but when you hear that story, that's what really gets you, right? And so it's really teaching through stories. And so we've been doing some live book signings and opportunities, and we were in North Carolina, where I'm going to Boston. We've done one in Columbus. We've kind of linked in with some of the cannabis educators or expos, and we have become fast friends with the Cannabis Libris. If you're not familiar, Michael J. Green, amazing man who has a traveling bookstore, all cannabis books. And he, he's a retired attorney that got into the cannabis space, fell in love with it, and wants to educate people. And so he sets up a booth at expos all over the country. And so I've done book signings with him specifically, where he sets up the booth and I just come in and do the signing, and not just myself, but the other authors that are available as well. And if you don't know cannabislibris.com, they're amazing. So yeah, a little plug for him.
And one more, sorry, BC. Go on.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, your mic is something. So do you like being the face? I mean, like, as you're doing these signings, I know when I had the store and stuff like that, when I was in my building, it was my domain. That safety, and it wasn't hard to bring up the courage when I'm in there or to talk to these customers. But outside of the store, it's a total different experience. Do you enjoy this, or is it more like, it's part of the battle, it's helping more than it's making you uncomfortable, so it's worth it?
Yeah. Gosh, that's such a good, like, no one's ever asked me that. I think it's a little bit of both. I like communicating with people, and but I hate, like, I'll never look at this again. Nothing personal, BC. But I don't watch my own videos. I don't look at my own. I hate my own photos.
I don't look at anything I do. I don't ever watch anything I do ever.
Right.
And I probably should, because it's supposed to make you better. And every once in a while I'll do, and I still do stand-up comedy and some things, and I'll watch it a little bit. Yeah. Or I'll hear, actually, Dustin and I were doing some audio editing recently, and all I could hear, we were with someone else who was enjoying a show we had done, a past episode, but all I could hear was a swallow or a tick or an
Right.
And I'm like, you have to turn it off. I can't listen to myself. Like, you can't, because he's like, it's fine. I'm like, nope, I can't do it, because all I hear is every negative side. So it's hard. And for the record, even though my mic was muted, that was also my question. So good question, both of us, same time. Was about being the face, right? Because that's hard to constantly be out there.
But I think that it's multiple levels for me, because I enjoy connecting with people. Like, that is my sweet spot. Like, really connecting with people, affirming people's experiences. So, and I feel like I do have a story and a message to tell in that sense, right? And humanizing and making cannabis relatable and taking away I feel like I have the ability to do that. On the other side of it, like I said, I hate looking in any of that. I no interest in. But I think there's this also part of me that prior to cannabis, if you came into my office, baggy pants, clogs, no makeup, ponytail, you would think I barely got out of bed that day. Like, I found no motivation at all, and my mom had this idea that I got dressed up in pearls and heels and went to the doctor's lounge and ate steak. And I used to tell her, what are you thinking? Like, none of that happens. But as she got older, because she would never let go of that idea, as she got older, I would say, oh yeah, Mom, yeah, we had steak in the doctor's lounge. And because if it makes her happy, who cares, right?
Right.
So a lot of the times when I'm doing these, like, being the face, I'm like, this is what Margie wanted. She wanted a little makeup. She wanted me to, like, put clothes on that, so there's a part of me that I kind of do it because I knew that would make her happy, in a sense. And I don't know.
You get a lot of recognition, though, for being the face. And I think it's amazing. We've had a lot of people on here. We often talk about, the lack of representation in our industry. And I know you've recently, been awarded both a minority business entrepreneur, a women's business entrepreneur, of which you are both. And so to put it out there, it's pretty amazing. When we talk about, we've had this conversation before about the Cleveland School of Cannabis and teaching class. It's about your story, and it's about getting yourself out there and putting a face that other people can look at and say, I look like them. They share my story, right? It's advertising 101 as well. Like, that's the type of person I want to be like, right? I want to achieve that. And so you being comfortable with putting your face out there, both as a female, both as an African-American, like, that is a powerful message to exude that kind of confidence, combine the professionalism with it. Like, it really says a lot. Does that, I'm sure it's something you're proud of, but, just a little bit about being someone in a heavily white male dominated industry to say, well, look at me. Like, don't forget about us, but not only don't forget about us, but I'm kicking some ass here on top of that. Is
I'm
that
yeah, you're
exciting
gonna
for
be
you? I mean,
behind
does
me.
it feel like, do you feel pressure, I guess, sometimes? You know, they talk about, I'm big into sports, and sometimes Michael Jordan would be like, I just want to play ball. Like, I don't want to worry about being the face of a change and movement, is where I think the modern athlete is more accepting of that role. They want to be part
Sure.
of social change. Do you like that?
Right.
Do you feel pressure, or is it something that just happens in, as a result, and that it just is a positive aspect of it?
Well, I think it just, first of all, I think it all just as far as I'm concerned, it just kind of happened. Like, I didn't think any of this
No, you
out
are who you
at
are.
all.
You are who you are, and you just had success, and as a result,
Yeah,
sure.
but it's just it, and I think, again, stories like why I even like being a doctor and why I got so much trouble when I was in traditional medicine is because the stories really motivate me. Like, I spent time trying to understand my patient because I felt like it made all the difference in whether they were successful with whatever regimen we were providing, right? And so when I started hearing these stories and understanding people's life experience when it came around cannabis, and I know the doctors too that turned their nose up, and I think that annoyed me so much because I'm like, you turn your nose up at me, you turn your nose up at these like, I'm tired of these nose turners, right? And I think I wanted to be that person that, you know what, I've been ostracized too for numerous reasons, right?
Sure.
And if I can normalize this, if I can put myself on the line, or just make people feel like, wait, if she's doing this, how bad could it be? Then that's what I was meant to do, you know? And then at the same time, I'm fascinated by the science. I'm fascinated about what the future of cannabis is going to be. And how the pharmaceutical companies are, I mean, there's no doubt what cannabis can do, right? I think it's only going to get larger and more accepted. But it takes all of us, it takes all of us to be able to get us there. So
there have been so many points in this conversation where I just wanted to jump through this screen and give you a hug and say, yes, thank you, please, yes. On a positive note, what do you truly hope for the industry? What do you hope the future is in, say, Ohio and some of the surrounding states? What do you, and we'll just say in a short amount of time of 5 years, what do you truly, some of the most basic, the smallest wins, what do you hope some of those will be?
I don't know. Okay, so a lot of this goes back to legalization. I don't know if the country's going to go or Ohio's going to go first. Part of me actually thinks the country would legalize before Ohio does.
If I had to guess, I would put, we've talked about this a lot. I'm a big advocate that I think we'll federally deschedule before we legalize, because it makes more sense, and it has a lot of other logistical issues that are erased, because federal legalization creates a whole slew of problems versus deschedulization. I don't think Ohio, we've had this, I don't think Ohio is down. I don't think Ohio is down with cannabis. They have it as a money-making revenue.
Yes.
They are not a state who's ready to embrace it anytime soon.
No.
So I think Ohio is a kicking and screaming child who you have to drag into it. They have neighbors all around it. All their friends got all the cool stuff, and Ohio's like, I don't really like it. I don't want to be like Michigan and Illinois.
They cash the checks every week.
They're comfortable with that part,
right? But so I suspect if we're not at federal legalization, or like you said, deschedulization in 5 years, we're going to be close, right?
Sure.
And so that's one aspect of it. I think, as always, as humans, we continue to evolve and technologically, scientifically find other ways to grow something that people are passionate about. And so I'm very excited to see what we do with new cannabinoids and what we do with terpenes, and really creating combinations that do things that are mind-blowing and something we never thought of, right? I see better options for cancer patients. I see, probably more than 5 years from now, cannabis teams in hospitals, so that whether it's the patient or the doctor that's like, we want to add cannabinoids onto this patient's regimen, and it's going to be a specialty, right? So it's not going to be every doctor. So you'll have a cannabis team that comes in, looks at the patient, makes recommendations, and probably it's going to be pharmaceutical cannabinoids, but all the same, there'll be cannabinoids that are part of the regimen for, patients. What I hope we don't lose is the culture. I hope that like I talk often about one of our authors, Mary Jane Borden, who's a pioneer in Ohio as far as legalization and creating this program, and she's a journalist for the Columbus Free Press and writes her Mary Jane's Guide to Cannabis, I think, every month. And I've never met someone so beautiful and humble who has done such significant work. And I often say, you exemplify the plant. And I often in my talks asking people, exemplify the plant, be loving, be healing, be caring, be open, because industry is industry, and industry is ugly. It's fighting, it's dog eat dog crazy world. But if we can keep our culture of the love that people have for cannabis and express that with others, hopefully we won't get as nasty as other industries eventually become. So that's my hope.
It's going to be interesting, because I look, and we had a testing expert on, Dr. Kumar Bid, recently, and we were talking about testing, and he brought up Epidolex, right? So this first kind of prescription level cannabinoid based pill that you swallow. And so after the show, Dustin and I were talking, and the reality is, like, if we get more to that, where it becomes a prescription, you lose the culture, right? You're going to lose some of that, because essentially then you go to the doctor. I'm not into, when I'm suffering a cold right now, I got to go get some strep throat. I get some antibiotics. I'm not into the augmentin culture. I don't even know what the augmentin culture is, right? Or like these types of antibiotics and other things. So as it becomes used more, and maybe if it gets, as you talked about, and pharmaceutical cannabinoids, as we understand the cannabinoids, but we use this other way to then consume them, or to then heal people, or to help people through pills, the traditional method of ingestion, right? Does that then erase some of it? Does that take away from the beauty of the plant? Because really now we got all these people, they're just going to their pharmacy at Acme or CVS or wherever they go, Drug Mart, they're walking in, they're getting a prescription, they're getting a bottle, it's orange, it's clear, it's got a bunch of pills in it, you take them once a day. There is nothing that says cannabis culture, because whatever in the pill, I don't even know. Is that exciting for you, or is that almost sad, kind of along the lines?
No, it's sad. Like I fight for us to keep our cultivators and processors and natural approach to this. I'm scared of pharmaceutical companies getting involved, because they don't give a shit about it. I don't usually swear during interviews. I want you to know it's BC. Like,
I like to think that we're just comfortable people, Dr. Bridget, that we just exude casualness, and you're like, yo, man, I'm just gonna sit down. We're having a chill.
And when it comes to advocacy of any kind, sometimes
Passion.
You are standing up for someone else, and it's just Mama Bear comes out. It's just how it's
passion just exudes itself through foul language. What are you gonna do? You just gotta let it out.
Just for the public, I don't usually swear.
No, it's not what a typical Dr. Bridget. You can get your effing cannabinoid. You don't usually drop like 12 F-bombs mid-session? Is that not?
Not on camera. Not on camera.
Right. But it's all in. You're in your car. You're traveling. We're cool dudes. It happens. It happens.
But I am concerned about what pharmaceuticals will do. But I think I am fighting for the cultivator, the processor, the natural approach to this. I think what will stop it from just becoming just old-fashioned pharmaceuticals, though, is that there's a recreational aspect. There aren't really other drugs, quote-unquote drugs, that you can use on this level and more, medicinally, and use it safely, recreationally, or leisurely. I don't even know if I like recreational, leisurely, right? I don't know of anything else you could do that in the manner that you can with cannabis. So there will always be a culture that there'll just be I think medicinal, I've had people say that medicinal and recreational will combine, but I've also had people say, and I suspect that there'll be this medicinal culture, this medicinal go to your pharmacist, and then there'll still be this cannabis culture on the other end that's more leisurely, right?
I think to that, yeah.
I think it'll be larger, because as soon as people get the permission to use it, then they're okay. Now everything's okay, right? But I don't think it will. It's not going to go away, and if anything, we're innovative people. We'll create and build things that we have never even considered at this point, to continue really a beautiful culture in itself. So yeah.
I want to pick your brain a little bit because you're a doctor and I have you on here. And so part of what I think is interesting as we get more people, as we talked about a little earlier in the show, that are honest with their doctors, that are comfortable with sharing. And you should, by the way, side note, educational
Absolutely.
note here. Tell your doctor everything you're on. I don't care if you're down in a fifth of Jack and snorting coke. They can't help you diagnose what's happening internally if they don't know everything you're putting in your body. Like, it's true.
100%.
Sugar, I mean, not just drugs, but sugars and excess things. Like, they can't tell you what's happening unless they know everything that's in your body. And that's what, when I was getting to my standardized patient story, I've learned that, like, you have to be honest with them because otherwise they can't figure it out. And so I'm curious, and this will lead to my question, because I'm curious about cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, easy for me today, CHS, because I think as more people talk to their doctors, we're going to find, I've always approached this carefully, I don't want to say a negative, but some realistic other aspects of the plant that, like anything, an overconsumption of sugar or an overconsumption of water can lead to symptoms, right? And it's not always everyone. There are people who have chain smoked cigarettes from 6 till 90 who don't get lung cancer, right? And there are people who do a hard drug one time and die. Like, it's all across the board. So particularly cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, because I recently know someone who's working through this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. And just as people talk to their doctors more, we're going to learn some negative sides to it. Are we going to see some things? Is that something you think about, or am I off base on that? So both CHS, I'm curious on your thoughts on that, and then just the other side effects that can come from it, and a realistic mindset of, look, it's something you're putting into your body, and you got to be careful, right? Because everyone's body's different. You're different. I'm different. Dustin's different. You know, we're all a little different.
So I definitely think, so 100%, you got to tell your doctor, and you might be educating somebody. So don't. Your true confession might be helping your doctor, whether it's with you or the next patient that walks in. So share as much as you can. As far as, cannabis hyperemesis, so yeah, I find with legalization, we get better research, because that it's still a touch of a mystery when it comes to that. I've seen some different things about using Haldol and Benadryl and different things to calm it down, but there's a lot that we need to learn about that, and I'm hoping with more research we'll get to really the heart of what that really is. So I don't know your entire question anymore.
Well, just trying to think about, are you uncomfortable with, I guess, as people talk to their doctors more, the fact that there may be some more negative aspects to it,
that's
right?
reality.
Yes.
You know what drives me?
That's all I want, because sometimes I feel like people who are in the medicinal world, and I agree with you, there will be this culture, it's almost like blinders on. And I'm like, I want to go there, but you have to be realistic. And as you said, there's a realistic side to it. And I think there's a lot of amazing, and every time I say that, I feel like people look at me as like a Debbie Downer, and it's not. I'm just a realist. That. Like I said, it's got a lot of amazing qualities, but I think you have to be honest. I think sometimes people aren't honest about it.
So, 100%. And if anything, I welcome it. I do welcome it, because then now we're talking reality. I will tell you, even when I started teaching at the Cleveland School of Cannabis, I added a whole section on allergies. The CHS was already in there. Medication contraindications. I added a whole section in there because I was like, when it's all positive, you're dealing unicorn poop. Like, you're just like magical fairy dust. It does, like, I want the students, I want patients to have a much more realistic view about what this is, than thinking, oh, it's so perfectly, there's no side effect. No, then you're dealing with unicorn poop. That's all you're doing. You're talking about a plant. People are going to have allergies. Okay.
Yes.
You're talking about a natural plant. People are going to have various reactions to it. We need to live in that reality. What I didn't want to do was arm students and sending them out into the world after they finished their education, and all they knew were the positive aspects. First of all, they are not prepared to get into a really good argument. I want you to be prepared for the good fight, right? And I often would tell students that I want you to know 3 research articles, 3 experts, what have you. Know their name, know their point of view, know what their research says. Because when you go for that argument, it's one thing to say, no, it does a good job. It's another thing to say, Ethan Russo said in his research that with, clinical endocannabinoids, and it's not about the fancy words. It's about you knowing your shit, and it's about knowing it well, right? And if the only thing you know is the good things, then I don't build a biased community, build an educated community. And that's good and bad. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's not the only tool in the toolbox. It is a tool in the toolbox.
I love him. So I used to do a show during COVID, the beginning of COVID. It was called the Wellness Toolkit. And so Dustin's my new boyfriend, just in case.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
real. She's swearing. She's picking up people. We had all sorts of craziness happening
right?
here because right?
But it was all about holistic approaches to health, and people assume me being a physician that I know stuff that I've never been really, sometimes not even exposed to. And people talk to me and I say, yeah, of course. But I have no freaking idea what they're talking about. And it's hard to get people to sit down to answer all of my questions, God forbid, right? So during the beginning of COVID, I was doing like a Facebook Live where I was bringing on hypnotists, Reiki, crystal people, sex therapists, traditional dietary and nutrition people, and literally they had to sit there for at least 40 minutes while I asked all the questions that I've always wanted to ask people but never had the opportunity. What I do with my patient, and I figured if I have questions, other people have questions, right? What I do with my patients is that I all but demand they have a wellness toolkit, right? That if what annoys me more than anything is that if you think cannabis and CBD just does everything and you don't need anything else, then you're missing the boat. It's like the person that goes to the gym 6 days a week, but eats McDonald's every night. You're not doing anything good for yourself. Okay. You're barking up the wrong tree. You're completely missing the point. Right. So I don't want people to just use cannabis and then be counteracting all the things that they actually need for their body. You need to support your cannabis use. You need to do the yoga. You need to get the quality sleep. You need the sex therapist. I don't know, whatever it may be. Right.
Whatever it takes, Dr. Bridget.
Whatever it takes. Right.
Whatever it takes.
But having a well-supplied wellness toolkit is key to what cannabis is really all about. Right. Cannabis supports the good things in your body. It helps balance it out. But if you're screwing it up every day with fast food and alcohol and save your money, don't even buy the cannabis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, try to create a lifestyle that really supports what you're trying to do.
I think that is one of the most wonderful things I love about you, Dr. Bridget Williams, about greenharvest.health, the place that you run, and I learned this about you early on because we talked about it. And I think I even may have even said, yo, Dr. Bridget, can you give me a card on the DL, and you're like, yeah, we got to have a conversation. I got to coach you. And I'm like, it's a lot of work for me. Right. But that is immediately in retrospect and thinking about it, that's what makes you a wonderful advocate for this, right? Because it is about the patient, right? It is about the consultation. And I think as we talked on our previous episode of Wayward Planet, it's about this hour-long conversation you try to spend with them. You try to figure out who they are. You try to figure out what other things are going on. And you may leave Green Harvest Health without a recommendation for cannabis because it's not right for you. That's what blew my mind. I think when you said that, you're like, well, it may not be right for everyone. which is not what you tend to find in some of the cash for card, right? You tend to be like, hey, here it is. Boom, you got chronic pain. Oh, here's your thing. And you're like $250 out the door, right? You're like, what just happened? You Karnak like Johnny Carson. No one even gets that, but you kind of like chronic pain. Here you go.
Right.
Like, what? So
how
love
embarrassing though. How embarrassing and shameful. Like I'm so confused by my medical cohorts. Because what the hell is that? Like,
and even renewing my card, I mean, it was a 30-second half of a question that they weren't even listening to. And then, yep, I'll see you next year. And it didn't it didn't validate the work I was doing. It didn't validate the change that was happening in my life. The fact that, you know, I'm no longer disabled in the same capacity. I'm able to get up and not have to crawl to the shower just to move, you know, in the morning. And it's like, you're not really seeing me along this journey. You're just, again, collecting the yearly rate. And so the more and more I read about your practice and stuff like that, the more and more I was like, there's so many people that this is who you know, family members of, you know, parents with children with autism and stuff, where I really believe you're the only place in Ohio that they should be going to talk to about this right now, because the experience everywhere else that I've ever sent them to, they were not along for the journey with them. And when it comes to parents with children who really can't vocalize a lot of this stuff for themselves, I don't know. I just think that education and seeing them along that journey is just the only way. And
And I learn, and I've always been like this though, even just my traditional family practice with, you know, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diet, you know, whatever. I learn every day from my patients. I don't believe it's a one-sided relationship. And so along this route, I also became a life coach. I hope my life coaching clients get nearly as much out of the interaction as I do, because I walk away, I'm like, you know, all that shit I said, I'm about to do that too. You know what I mean? And so I walk away motivated to do better, right? This holistic medicinal relationships can be so beautiful and life-changing if we would just slow down enough to see what our purpose is, right? And I think cannabis is one way to get there, right? I'm disappointed in my colleagues, you know, and how they've taken this as a way to fund their, you know, kids, I don't know, college or
boat. Yeah.
You know,
I feel like every time I went
program.
into him, he was like, that's January's boat payment. Thank you very much.
Right.
You know, it just didn't feel very good.
Right. And I have to say that in doing what I do, you know, I made much more money when I was at the clinic, but I was miserable in the process. And if anyone can find something that speaks to their heart and their passion, then do that, because, you know, money will always, you know, somehow, somewhere works itself out, but you cannot put a dollar sign on love and passion. And so it always, I feel like it'll always work out if you follow your passion. Like one of my favorite quotes is Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss and doors will open where there were only walls before. And a family doctor, one of my attendings shared this with me when I was, again, at a crossroads in my career. And I wrote that down, and it has stayed with me my entire existence since. And I always like, follow your bliss. It'll work out, you know? So I hope that for all of us.
I love that. That feels like a perfect note. We're reaching our hour. It feels like a perfect kind of spot to wrap up this conversation. Clearly, we'll talk to Dr. Bridget Williams again. Follow your bliss, right? Yeah. Follow your bliss.
Follow your bliss.
Doors will open where walls were once before. That is exactly what we're trying to do. Courage in Cannabis, courageincannabis.com. The book is available on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble. There is a link below in the comments. I don't know why I have to do that. I feel like every person on YouTube has to say, look, it's below. They know where it's at. It's below. Subscribe while you're there. So follow the link in the comments. You can check out the book. Go to courageincannabis.com. If you have a particular author, a particular person who shared their story. As Dustin said, there are a few people on that site that you can click their link and support them directly, which would be fantastic. And I think, to Dustin's point, that was not that it was unexpected, but it was a amazing surprise, because that doesn't always happen. The fact that that was a thought in your forefront to say, let's not just, because a book, you know, you make money, but not just you, that really speaks to them in their story, in the fact that they can now monetize that a little bit. So you don't have to click this link. Go to courageincannabis.com, find your favorite author, your favorite storyteller, click their link, support them. Dr. Bridget Williams, drbridgetwilliams.com. Green Harvest Health, Dustin, obviously a glowing recommendation, you know, the storytelling, getting to know your person. greenharvest.health. I think you have offices in Cleveland and Columbus. Is that correct?
Yep.
So we got offices in Cleveland and Columbus. greenharvest.health. Once again, below, you'll see a link to Dr. Bridget Williams' website. Check it out. Please purchase the book. Enjoy these stories. These are people just like you, just like me, just like Dustin, just like Bridget Williams. People who are sharing their stories about their journey, trying to figure it out. It's not perfect, but it's real. And I think that's what I really love about you, Bridget. You're just real. Like, you are who you are. And the rest, and the accolades, all the awards, all the recognition rightfully deserved should come your way. But you are who you are. And I think that part is what is a magnet. I think that's why people are, you know, in that, why they circle around you, right? Because of the positivity, because of the realness. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Bridget Williams from Green Harvest Health, courageincannabis.com. Really appreciate it. Look forward to obviously talking to you again, and obviously best of luck in what you're doing.
Absolutely. It's great seeing you. Great meeting you, Dustin.
And we'll